Okay, shalom everyone. Welcome to the 37th חיפה International Film Festival. My name is Poli. I'm super excited to moderate this professional panel. I just want to say, well, I'm doing here this panel. So many industry people just came back from this event of Scenes of a Marriage, the new Chagai Levy HBO TV hit. So they're all out there in the cocktail having fun, but we are here gonna have a lot of fun with such a great bunch of industry folks talking about the situation now of the film industry, what is going on, how can we work? You know, we're still in this limbo of still in the life of COVID-19, and I'm so happy. I'm going to introduce the panelists in a sec, but I just want to say about those panelists, besides there are professionals, they really love cinema. So it's wonderful to have people here that not just work professionally so many years in the US industry, they also love cinema. They're wonderful ambassadors of culture and cinema. Many of you saw you can see their bio. I just don't want, to read the entire bio. You can see it in the registration form, but I'm quickly gonna say hello to Greg Lemley, and hello to MJ Picos, and hello to Lila Mead O'Connor, and hello Lucius Bear, and hello Larry LeBeau. Did I miss anyone? I think I said hello to everyone. I'm sorry, I'm very excited to make a live festival after 2 years. It's very, very exciting. Guys, welcome. We have here people from New York, through Wichita and LA, and we are here in Haifa, very, very honored to have you with us. And I'm gonna jump straight, as I said, I'm gonna jump straight to the talk. I'm gonna introduce very shortly everyone. It's an open conversation. I'm saying to our audience, you are welcome to ask questions or in the Q&A or in the chat. We have a D here in the background. She will text me if I'm gonna miss one of the questions. So please, this is an open conversation for you. So let's dive in. So Greg Lemley, I'm going to start with you, Greg, and it's wonderful to see you. You're now in LA?
No, I'm remote right now.
Oh, great.
Coming to you from Seattle.
So Greg Lemley is the president of Lemley Theaters, a family-owned and operated company which has been exhibiting movies in Los Angeles since 1938. Everyone, you can read about this chain, but to say Lemley, even Israeli filmmakers and international filmmakers, when they know their film is showing at the Lemley, wow, what more can you ask? Greg, it's wonderful you joined us.
Happy to be here, thank you.
And I wanted to start with you because we know it's been such a hard time, and it is hard times, and we're all delighted that the theaters are now open, am I correct?
Yes, we've been open since April in Los Angeles.
Please tell us how you have a lot of access on your shoulders. You have workers, many workers, you have facility, there is a lot on your baggage. How is it now to come back, that cinema is coming back and the theaters are back?
Well, after 13 months of closure, we're extremely happy to be open again, and that our workers are back, that the facilities are open, and the patrons can come to see movies. Unfortunately, moviegoing is still not at the levels that it needs to be. Again, after being closed for 13 months, people just weren't even sure that we were open. The reopening process was staggered. So clarity was not there. The number of films and the quality of films that were available, at least initially, was, the quantity was not where it needed to be. The quality was not quite where it needed to be. And, you need something very exciting to get people, back out of their house after 13 months of closure. And just as we were beginning to get some momentum, we had the Delta surge in the United States, which is, still a factor, and still keeping people from feeling, completely comfortable returning to movie theaters. So It's a struggle, more than usual.
No, without a doubt. We all here, even here in the festival, which is a miracle that it takes place live until 3 weeks. Everyone was sure, are we going to have a festival or we're not going to have a festival? So Greg, really, we really hope that the opening is gonna work it, and we're gonna come back to you later. Now I wanna add Lila Mead O'Connor. Lila is Executive Director of Film Festival Alliance and of Mama Film, which was a satellite screen for the Sundance Film Festival in 2021. I just want to say, Lila was here last year. I did this panel about rethinking distribution in last year's festival that was online. Lila is the only one that I asked to come back because Lila, it's so, I feel like the film festivals, and I'm not talking about, you know, the A-list, the markets, Tribeca, Sundance, the small, the regional film festivals, it feels hold the film industry or on their shoulders. What is the situation now with those film festivals that you work, that you know?
Thank you for having me back. I'm honored to be here amongst all of you. Yeah, I was just thinking about that, Aran. It's been a year since we've talked, you know, on this panel, and how things have changed so fast. And now we're looking at the regional and many of the larger festivals going back to in-person and hybrid formats. But it really has been a really formative 18 months or however many months it's been now for the regional, mostly who I'm representing, film festivals. And, you know, in the beginning of the pandemic in March of 2020 or April of 2020, it was very easy for festivals to quickly go online. And it was novel, and it was, you know, it was cool for their audiences to say, oh, I can't attend the Cleveland Film Festival, but I can go online. And they had an incredible turnout for their virtual film festival. But as the year continued and other arts organizations and everyone else figured out how to, you know, or that they had to really provide virtual content to sustain their organizations. Film festivals, I think, just sort of, it became harder and harder to market that as you know, original, unique content. People are just inundated with subscription models already, and you know, having one more thing to choose from, it's easier just to turn to the algorithm and say, all right, what do you have for me, Netflix? But now that I'm seeing that film festivals are going back in person and doing these hybrid events, and theaters are opening, and it's really encouraging. And I feel that it's like that in-person communal experience around film is so important, and probably why so many of us got into this business in the first place. Whether you're a filmmaker or an exhibitor or a distributor, your job and your passion is to see people coming together around film, and it doesn't translate virtually in the same way. And so I feel encouraged. I think there'll be some more hiccups down the road. I definitely think our industry is forever changed. But I do feel that, you know, hearing that you're having your festival right now is just, it makes me so happy.
Thank you, Lila. And by the way, I don't want to brag, but 2 days ago, it was the opening night of the חיפה Film Festival. It was the festival Spring Stillwater. And it was packed auditorium for 1,200 people. And as I said, until 3 weeks ago, that everyone was sure that it might going to be canceled or just going to be hybrid or online. It's very, very exciting. We feel all of us in this industry or have a lot of anxiety. But here we are. Now I want to thank you, Lila, and we're going to come back. Now I want to bring Lucius Bear. That was so cool. Lucius, you're such a cool guy that you were so spontaneous that I wrote to you like 3 hours ago, if you mind to join us. So thank you for being spontaneous.
Good. Well, the man I'm replacing is on his way to the airport. He's being deported, I think, isn't he? Is that what happened?
Say again?
No, the man I'm replacing is out of the country now. He's been deported. I didn't have any part of the doing it, but I heard about that. Yeah.
This is a part of the online events. Sometimes people, all of a second, they can't show up. But show
well, I think I bring reports.
It's online events, people can't show up. But it was so cool that you're joining us. And
good. Should I jump in? I'm bringing reports from Locarno and Venice, who are two of the driver festivals. I have a background in Cannes, where when you show a film at Cannes, it's like going into the carnival and hitting the gong. You hit that mallet and hope that it goes up and rings the gong, and you know immediately whether you have something that's working or not in the industry. And it's a very fast and hard reality that you face when you show a film at Cannes. You'll have a very clear reading, like a very extensive test of how the film is playing in all sorts of ways. I can go into case studies of that, but it's really a very good thing. Last year, Locarno 2020 had a hybrid festival that did not work. This year, they evaluated small, medium, and large, and they built Locarno in August, had the option of, finally went with the option of having 5,000 of their 8,000 outdoor auditorium seats occupied. They had enough distancing, enough management, and a COVID manager for all guests and participants, and they had a pretty good festival, except that because Cannes took place in July, they had taken a lot of the films that Locarno had wanted. So the selection at Locarno was a little flat, as far as many of us are concerned, but that's mainly because we had, normally, when we go to Cannes in May, we see that Locarno is about half or 2/3 full of films, and the selection and invitations to Locarno go on through May, June, July, and that's where we were at. Locarno was at a shortfall this year. Venice last year, 2020, had a great festival because they had a half capacity and many people showed up, and it was easy to get around. A critical mass of industry people showed up at Venice, so it was a good festival. This year, they went back to the 50% capacity mode, but it was unfortunately 60% more guests. So key buyers, key participants, key journalists were having trouble getting tickets. Even to the press screening, you had to get a ticket. And I had a film in the Orizzonte Horizons section of the festival. The press screening was only 77 people. So I was like trying to get response or reaction. There was a bit of applause. It was hard to get that same on the ground immediate response that we have at most key festivals. Even Cleveland, I know that when some people come out of a film, they say, wow, at least you hope that every day or every twice or three times a day, there'll be something at your festival that will inspire the audience to say, wow, what was that? Great work. Why? I recommend it to friends. Building that from the awareness to the want to see factor is part of what we do at key festivals. And that was somehow a little flat at Venice because of this limited crowd size and limited capacity. And so you didn't hear much on the street except people say, oh, I heard it was a good film. I heard it was a good film. We happened to win a prize and we were best film in the Horizonte section. So that was good. But the general run of what goes on day to day about the beehive effect of having buzz about certain films moving through the crowd is diminished when we don't have a full house. And that was what was missing at Venice this year, even though they set the model for future festivals.
So Lucius, thank you. And if you can please even elaborate about this kind of film that is there in Venice and it feels it doesn't get enough the intention that it could have get. What's next?
Well, if we had not won a prize, we would not have been invited to 5 or 6 other festivals, maybe, or we would have been among those that people invite as they see fit, or as you read about the film. But by the way, we didn't get trade reviews. That's another point. But there's a new magazine, by the way. You've heard about the film Verdict, founded by Deborah Young of Variety and Jay Weisberg, and several other people are joining the team of a new magazine to have most substantive reviews, which we count on as leverage to help get the film the attention it deserves if it's going to be distributed or taken on by local distributors around the world. So even that, there were no reviews and the word of mouth was limited, but still there were a lot of people in the industry talking about things. So still people cut each other up on things and had a really great place to have sandwiches and a really place to have coffee. And we saw a lot of each other as a less stressful, it sounds like Haifa actually, less stressful than Cannes, which is, as you may know, like a pressure cooker. Meanwhile, we're all waiting to see what's going to happen with Berlin, because the main market hall at Berlin is, just between us, it's not very well ventilated. So they don't want to have full capacity in that hall, but if they have half capacity, how will they work it? They're not sure. They're still figuring that out. But that's where many of us who don't go to festivals to see films as much as to see people and talk about future projects and how we get our current projects out, many of us who don't go to films spend our whole day in the markets. So among market people, and that's going to be a really good challenge that Berlin will have to face, because their sustainability, by the way, is that they've been selling, in 2019, Berlin sold 400,000 public screening tickets. How about that? So they're a huge public event in the city of Berlin, which means their sustainability is not in question. Unlike Cannes, where the city of Cannes has no major cooperation protocol with the festival, they're charging rent to the festival every year, and the exhibitors and participants have to absorb that rising cost every year, which makes Cannes clearly not as sustainable as some might hope.
Okay, thank you, Lucius. So we can see from what you're saying that the connection between the city and the festival, and that's crucial.
Yes.
I'm gonna invite now, thank you, Lucius. I'm gonna invite now MJ Picas. MJ is many years, MJ, many years of experience in all phases of marketing and distribution in both commercial and specialized film sector, including theatrical marketing, distribution, acquisition, on video marketing, television, licensing, and non-theatrical sales. I can go on and on. MJ has a wonderful bio. She also correct me if I'm saying that right, she's running campaign for the Academy Awards. Some of them are very successful. For those that are now wanna go to the Academy Award, MJ did beautiful work on Israel's submission to the Oscar, the last one, Tacshia. MJ, welcome. Listening to everyone, and I'm gonna talk about distribution now from the distribution side. First of all, traveling became hard. We know the theaters are now just reopened. There is a big question mark. We have many filmmakers here that are thinking about the next step of marketing. I'm curious, and later I'm going to ask also the other panelists about now when you come to pick a film, does all the situation, this new protocol of life, how does it affect your way to choose a film that you're going to invest so much time and money to promote?
Well, it has. Thank you for having me. It's fun to be here. So firstly that. I sort of call distribution these days, it's sort of like the Wild Wild West. When we started back doing actual in-theater programming as opposed to virtual, which I have my opinion of virtual, which I don't think it was that successful, but it was a way to pivot immediately to keep your audience engaged. And I think that was really smart on Greg's behalf and all the other exhibitors that opted to do that. But now that we're back in theaters, lots of things I see have changed. We used to platform art houses, New York, LA, then we'd go out to the next 10 markets and so on and so forth. But in this climate right now, we're just getting as many runs. We're getting as many runs as we can on whatever date we've put our flag in for releasing it. So I just opened a film on 40 screens that I wouldn't have done that way had it been 2 years ago, I guess. But it just seems as though exhibitors are in need of product because they're burning through it so fast. Things aren't working as well as one would hope, not even close to it. But the doors are open and we have to keep the motion going and keep people feeling comfortable coming. I don't know, Greg, are you requiring a vaccine card to go to your theaters?
Other than one engagement or some single screenings here and there, we are not requiring a vaccine card.
Yeah.
In large measure, and in contrast to a country like Israel, where that was a state sponsored activity and therefore had all the benefits of the state. Here, it's, as you say, the Wild West. So the law can vary from one town to the other, or one saloon to the other.
Yeah, exactly. I read that art house Convergence blog pretty religiously, and it seems to me that the theaters that have instated that rule have their customers are feeling more and more comfortable about coming. So I guess we'll see what happens. But I mean, it's still, the criteria for a film and what you release is still pretty much the same. You hope that there's an audience for it. And, if there's some sort of a niche audience for it, you try obviously to go after that as well as your general audience. But I guess the biggest change I've seen is how we're actually distributing movies, which, as I said, the idea of platforming films seems to have taken a back seat, and we're just going for the whole thing at once, which also, belies the fact that mostly all your press is coming out in that first week because everything is so instantaneous online that, waiting and waiting for that to filter as we used to think it did throughout the rest of the country, I'm not so sure that still is in place. I think people are voraciously reading things online and are pretty up to date on what's out there and what's hot or what they want to see or what they want to
Yeah,
stream.
if I could jump in with an observation, because MJ and I were together at the Samuel Goldwyn Company when we
That's
were rolling
right.
films out city by city. So I had a filmmaker, an actress in Sydney, Australia, do an interview with Brattleboro, Vermont, which meant second week in Brattleboro in those cases. We micromanaged bookings as they went along and expanded. So when a film was reviewed in New York or Los Angeles, my friends in Kansas City would know that it would be there 6 or 8 weeks later. They'd had this innate sense of the film coming down the pike, which is now compressed to instantly. We want it now, as you say, MJ. That's exactly what we see from my point of view as well.
Right. And I have to tell you that I have a lot of friends who call me who aren't in the business, and they go, how do I find out how to see this movie? Like, I feel like I'm out lost in the weeds, and I don't know whether it's going to be streaming, whether I have to go to a movie theater, or if it is streaming, which streamer is it on? So there is, I mean, I don't know if these folks that are putting together Deborah Young, but that might be something they want to consider for their magazine, is some kind of a guide to what's playing in theaters, what's streaming, or I don't know of anywhere to go to. Maybe someone out there does, but I have no idea where to go and get that information to decide what I might want to go and see on Friday night, outside of the fact that I get a lot of newsletters from theaters, so I understand what's going on there. But to the general public, anyways, I think that's still sort of a bit of a problem. And also, people just don't know that it's playing exclusively at the Royal, for instance, and that's another big issue right now, is that both the New York and the LA Times are not reviewing every movie that's released in movie theaters. And in fact, they're reviewing films because their readers have written to them and said, we don't want to go to the movie theater. We want to know what Amazon, we want to know about all those things that are new on Amazon and Netflix and Disney Plus, and we want reviews for those films. So they've had to do a complete turnaround. And I've had a couple of movies that only got released in theaters not get reviews in the New York or the LA Times, which was not the case a year ago. And that hurts independent films tremendously.
Okay.
Also because they are on a wire service. And so therefore, in smaller cities that don't have a reviewer anymore, they can sometimes pick up a wire review. So it sort of has a ripple effect throughout. So those are just some of the challenges.
So we know that now, as we can hear, so many ways to hear about which film is playing. Where do you hear? How do you hear about those films? We're still in this limbo. There are many, many options that were not yet analyzed then. Thank you, MJ. And now I'm really happy to welcome Larry LeBeau. Larry is the co-founder and executive director of New Filmmakers LA. In Los Angeles, an organization committed to highlighting and connecting emerging filmmakers and storytellers worldwide. Guys, you can read the bio of Larry at our website. He's so young, but his bio is so impressive. Larry, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I wish I were still that young, but I appreciate it.
First of all, if you don't mind, like, on a nutshell, to tell about the way the New Filmmakers LA is very unique, how the way it works, if you can elaborate.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're very different from all the film festivals that I think have been discussed thus far. Our organization, like most organizations, like a larger film independent or a Sundance Institute, we are also a nonprofit 501c3. And like a lot of those organizations that have programs like Film Independent used to have, the LA Film Festival or Sundance Institute has the Sundance Film Festival. Our core program of our organization is the New Filmmakers LA Monthly Film Festival. Everyone is like, whoa, wait, what? A monthly film festival? How is that possible? We're located, of course, in Los Angeles. So the market and industry are always here and always available here for a festival. We're very much a shorts heavy festival. We do play features. So we play about 30 features a year and about 150 shorts a year. And the way that that's programmed is about 15 movies every month over a weekend festival. It's a week-long festival for the filmmakers. So one of the components that we have for filmmakers who are programmed is almost like a mini market. So basically filmmakers who come through the festival, they meet anywhere between 8 and 12 executives, started through a Monday through Friday and 90-minute meeting. So I think this month we had Amazon, we had Netflix, we had HBO, we have just a number of major companies. A lot of our shorts actually get acquired. So HBO Max acquires a lot of our shorts. Our 2 features of the past couple months were also acquired by HBO Max. We focus heavily on industry and press, as I mentioned. So this month, I think we had 2 LA Times articles for our films and our filmmakers. We had a Variety article. We have a partnership with Movie Maker Magazine. So all of the films are written about in Movie Maker Magazine each month for every single monthly festival. And with COVID happening, for us, we were always very much so an audience festival. We have a 500-seat theater in downtown LA. We'd always see that about 70% full for our monthly festivals. Everything kind of rotated in March of 2020 to where we shifted from focusing on audience and instead shifted on focusing on more opportunities for the filmmakers. We definitely have, Leela mentioned some festivals saw a surge in audience in the beginning of COVID. For us, we actually did not. We saw our audience drop. During the beginning of COVID, we pivoted with our monthly festivals in June of 2020. So basically we were making up March, April, May, and June over 1 month. And I think at that point, there had already been a lot of Zoom activity taking place, a lot of virtual events, a lot of virtual panels, virtual workshops, virtual screenings. So by the time we hit with our virtual festival, we definitely saw a drop. And that's even continued over time. I think the audience has kind of dwindled more and more and more. But where we've picked up as an organization is finding that now industry, who are oftentimes like, a lot of the industry that we work with here in Los Angeles who would normally have traveled to TIFF, they did not travel this year, right? So I think in a lot of the executives that we've enlisted to come in and support our filmmakers, with all the time I think that they've saved with virtual experiences, from having to travel, from being out at mixers and parties and other events that they would be at throughout the year, we've seen higher level sort of SVP level executives versus, manager level executives coming in to meet with our filmmakers. And in turn, we've seen a lot more action happening. So if we're bringing in people from TV development or film development, we've seen projects from our filmmakers go into acquisitions. Actually, for our Israeli cinema program, I'm not sure how much I can say about it, but there was a IP acquisition from an Israeli feature that played with us as part of our January In Focus Israel program. And that's now optioned over at Sony Pictures International. So we have a lot of things like that happening, both on the development side, on the acquisition side. I think that's been really important for us as a 14-year-old organization. We had never missed a beat in terms of our monthly festivals for basically 12 and a half years. And when March 2020 hit, it forced us into reimagining what our programming looked like. I think, more than anything, we're very, very eager to get back to in-person programming for our audience. Our filmmakers definitely want that return to mixers and in-person screenings, but I don't think we'll ever go back to doing our industry components in person again, because we see that it lowers the barrier of entry to people who we can bring in to look at very emerging filmmakers who they otherwise probably would not, right? Because those filmmakers are not the filmmakers, as Lucius said, who are programmed at Cannes and then sort of hit other certain market festivals throughout the year after that. We're not usually playing those films. We're playing the sort of, maybe 20 to 30 features that might play at AFI Film Festival that aren't spoken about in a big way on the festival circuit. And I think it's really giving those filmmakers who are not getting into a lot of the bigger festivals, or who are not getting the buzz that the 10 to 20 sweetheart films at the bigger festivals get. So that's in a nutshell kind of what we focus on as an organization.
Okay, Larry, I'm going to come back.
If I may dovetail, just to finish, Larry, that's a really good point. About last year, 2020, the Cannes market team decided they had a great debate about whether or not to do a virtual market, because they felt that if we let people know in the industry that they can do a lot virtually, they won't come back to Cannes. Well, we learned that most people got a lot done with a virtual market, and most people can do a lot of distance, even though, but the trick in that is that you have to know your people before. So if you know people, you have your address book, you can get a lot done without having to travel. That's a new wave of challenge to our time, but also an opportunity, as you say, Larry, to get new people into different spaces and not have to travel to Toronto to get to do business.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to come back, Larry, to you later to ask questions about the shorts, which I know we have many filmmakers here that are making shorts. We have a question here, Greg, maybe you would like to answer from Amir. And the questions here from a market, or MJ or anyone else, from a market point of view, it looks like it's ruled by streamers now. They are almost the only buyers at Sundance and other market festivals. How does this trend affect the rates of buying smaller films? And what happens to those big films that don't get picked up at Sundance, etc., and left for the scavengers of the industry? Sorry, I'm not familiar with the word scavengers. Greg, maybe you can start answering this very...
Well, I'm retail, and I'm going to defer to a wholesaler on this one. So MJ, you want to grab it?
Sure. It's scavengers is basically, it's like the hyenas of the pecking order, right? I guess best way to explain it. But for those films big films that don't get a big offer, there are a level of company that will come in and pick it up because they'll see that it's a good day and date title. If anything else, because it may have good cast, a good director, it just was a failed film overall, or not one worthy of Netflix or Amazon or any of those buying product. But it makes it near impossible for people like me to buy anything these days. We just sit back and watch. And it's I think the people being hurt the most by the streamers in terms of acquisitions are sort of everybody in the middle, like the Bleecker Streets and the roadside attractions and people like that who could come in the past and maybe pay, a fraction of what some of the streamers are paying. But then again, the other thing is that they're also oftentimes picking up the world. So you have to really evaluate what rights did they actually acquire. But yes, most often it's for numbers that we've never seen before get that high. So it definitely causes a lot of ripple effect in all the other people doing acquisitions. There's still wonderful films left over, that's for sure. It's just a matter of, are those wonderful films that should be in theaters these days, because of the kind of grossing potential is just not even to a point where you could even say, I'm going to break even on this movie and I'd be happy. So I guess we'll just see how it all plays out. And
also,
and they
MJ, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I want to add to this. It's been a worldwide phenomenon that when you launch a new film into the market for world sales, 90% of the career of world sales will be finished within 6 months after the first public screening, the first day that you say, here's the film, here's the premiere, it's finished. So you have to front load as many sales as you can. The best time to sell a film is before you show it, by the way. That's why we have the Dream Factory. And if you wait to Cannes to sign a sales agent and start getting the film out to the sales market, you're going to be behind the curve. And especially this year, we had a glut of programming, the films that weren't shown anywhere. And that's why Cannes in 2020 listed this huge selection of films to try to give them a boost in the market, but it didn't work too well. And if we have still this glut of films, MJ, I'd like to know what you think of the glut of films that were produced in 1920 that are still making their way through the sales market, haven't yet been shown properly to be in this pipeline.
I think those films are going to have a really, really tough time because there was no time to build the profile, and it's just like a shelf. You put the films up on the shelf, and once they've gone through their lifetime, they're off the shelf and the next titles are lined up.
And there's always new product to push you out of the way.
There's always new. Yep, exactly. There's no shortage of product, that's for sure.
That's for sure. There is no shortage. We see how many films are being produced every year. We know many films waited and still are waiting to get a platform. We're happy that there are many films that are being produced, but now is the question, how can we help them to get a platform? Lila, I want to bring you back to the discussion regarding the festivals, because I know many of those festivals, and it is important to talk about film festivals because we can see, not just because of the premiere, I'm not talking just about the audience. First of all, it's always about the audience. It's not just about the industry, about us, for us to have a career. It's about the audience. We want the audience to see new films. We want them to be discovered for these beautiful voices. But I'm curious to know how festivals are coping now. We heard from Greg, our festivals are coping now with bring audience when it's so hard, about maybe some new PR or marketing techniques.
Yeah, absolutely. I can touch on that, but I also just wanted to touch on, from a programming point of view, for a lot of these regional festivals, they may have anchor films that are some of the, that come from the distributors, but a lot of the films that they're showing are really those discovery films that aren't getting their premieres at Sundance or TIFF or some of the bigger festivals. And these festivals have direct relationships with the filmmakers. So in a lot of cases for the regional film festivals, that's a really great advantage because they've cultivated these relationships with filmmakers over the years, and so they know that, and so has their audience. So when they're bringing these films back, you know, they're saying this is an alumni filmmaker and we've played their films before, and the audiences get excited. So, you know, while it's important to recognize like these bigger name films, but like the question mentioned, like a lot of the and MJ, like a lot of those films aren't even, that are bigger, that are premiering at those big festivals, like films I saw at Sundance 2020, where are they? Films I saw at TIFF, you know, 2019, where are they? But I think that the regional festivals play a really important role for independent filmmakers. To your point and to Greg's point about, you know, bringing audiences back, I'm seeing lots of festivals go in person and hybrid this fall, but again, it's like, it's so hard to know based on like what your state regulations are, your community, you know, some festivals are requiring vaccination cards, some festivals are doing screenings only, canceling parties. Some festivals are just, they can't require vaccine cards because their state tells them they can't. Texas, Montana, there's lots of states where you cannot say you have to show us a vaccine card, or you have to say, you know, or even mask mandates. That's tough. So I think festivals as nonprofit organizations, you know, they're working with COVID compliance officers and they're trying to figure out ways to make their venues safe. You know, if that's social distancing, if that's ventilation, they're doing what they can to make the experience safe for their audiences. And I do feel like audiences really are hungry for that in-person, especially community, like regional and community-driven film festivals. They're really hungry for that in-person experience again. I'm seeing filmmakers traveling to festivals, which is really, you know, great too. I haven't been to a film festival in person in a long time, probably since Sundance of 2020, but I'll be going to Denver this fall, so I'm excited for that. So I'm just looking forward to like that in-person experience again myself. And I think that we got, you know, one of the things we talk about in FFA is how exhausted we are of like virtual film festivals. We've been doing it, and virtual cinema and virtual everything. We've been doing it for 18 months. We need to remember why we all got into this, again, going back to that idea of like why we all came together around cinema, is like that idea of like the energy and like the visceral feeling that you get when you're sitting in a dark movie theater, you're hearing the filmmaker talk about, you know, why they made this movie. And I think that is, I think we're headed back there. It may take a while, but we'll get there.
That's wonderful, Lila, and I'm happy you talked about earlier about the independent films and about festivals. I see the list of participants. Even earlier, I saw your filmmaker that just did his debut film, and he said like, no one is going to take the film. It's not high profile. I don't have like famous actors. It's not enough about the geopolitical situation in Israel. It's not, you know, it's just a small story between a guy and his girlfriend. And I'm happy what you're saying, because eventually there are curators behind it. Some festival can see the film, a festival can pick it up. There are don't give up for the filmmakers that they think that it's only distributors' films. We know there are so many festivals, people are watching the film. We have okay, this is a big question. We'll see who can answer it. From Shelley. Can you speak to the films who are skipping the festival market and going straight to the streamers, but the streamers aren't letting them play festivals? Someone can answer that question. Larry, please.
Yeah, I'd like to know.
I mean, we've definitely seen pushback from films that have already been acquired by streamers, but it's usually that they just want certain criteria met. They want the number of tickets limited, or they want it geo-blocked only to certain regions, or they'll want you know, we've had major streamers ask like, okay, we'll let it play for up to, you know, 500 people for that screening, but what can you do to help us promote the film's release? Usually you can negotiate it as a festival. If a filmmaker really wants to play a festival and they've been picked up by a streamer, I don't think we've ever had anybody flat out say no. We've definitely had pushback, but it's always been something we've been able to negotiate as the festival, so long as the filmmaker really wants it to happen, has been our experience.
Okay, thank you, Lucius. And I'm curious to hear your take, because we're still in this thing that we have streamers and we have theaters, and it's still, we don't feel yet it's like homogenic industry. Sometimes.
Well, let me take, for 8 years, I was giving a pep talk to new producers coming to Cannes market for the first time. And what I would begin with was the history, the root system, because we must never forget, and Lila, you've touched on this twice now in this conversation. Cannes Festival was chartered in 1939. It was soon after the First World War. Our aim at Cannes is to show the widest selection of films under the best possible circumstances in order to encourage the development of the film industry, with the purpose of building goodwill among the peoples of the world, to heal the nations that had been so ruined by the First World War and on the eve of the Second World War, which was 5 times more destructive. They never got started until after the wars, but in the middle of all that was a spirit of friendship and universal cooperation that was mostly about storytelling and sharing stories around the world that could remind us of our common humanity. Later, as we saw, it became celebrity-driven, sponsorship-driven. Cannes, for instance, was a nonprofit organization that never had a single sponsor until 1974. But we've gone out of control, because by the 50th anniversary of Cannes, we had 70 sponsors, and they were taking up tickets and doing events, and L'Oreal. Everyone is getting tired of the celebrity component, which is mainly for the festival sponsors. I mean, the sponsors like to have their celebrities for themselves. They have parties with celebrities, but that's not what film festivals have ever been about. Film festivals are about the storytellers. That's why Rotterdam when it got started in the 70s, they had every filmmaker come to have every Q&A with the audience and get to meet the audience and get to know what was behind the creation of the film. How'd you get this done? What inspired you to this story? So I see that right now, the sustainability of festivals is two-pronged. Cities like Berlin, Cannes, Cape Town, all these festivals, smaller and larger, like to see celebrities to sustain their budgets. But at the same time, the celebrities are wearing thin on the public. I think there are many people who know about films and want to share their stories of seeing films, and will have to share them more individually than to have giant press operations. There'll be influencers and different people get out direct tweets about stuff that will have to be expanded, so that we can get direct word from people who've seen those things, and not just the giant sponsors who endorse festivals, but they have no idea of the contents and they don't have any idea of the stories that are being told. So I see the festival celebrity agenda, sponsorship agenda, wearing thin, but that's a good thing for storytellers.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lucius. Thanks, you guys. I see we're starting to get many questions. We will try to answer some of them. Greg, I want to talk about Lumley. Lumley, you know, when I'm arriving to LA to see Lumley, for me, it feels like I'm seeing my parents' house, because it's such a place, you know, that I know this is a place to love cinema. For filmmakers today that are anxious and they do want, you know, I'm talking with many, even producers, they were saying, maybe it's a romantic point of view, where they're saying, yeah, there is the streamers, but we want the film to be on the big screen. We want people to buy popcorn. We want to see the reactions. For the new filmmakers and even established filmmakers that are here, we're curious to know the way that the Lamley chain, how the way you pick the films that are being shown at the chain, is it in festivals, is it from distributors? Just tell us on a nutshell for those who doesn't know.
Right. Well, again, I refer to us as retail, and that's really it. I mean, we are where the films meet the customer, the person who's buying that ticket and that popcorn. We become aware of films, you know, at the festival stage, generally, sometimes earlier, but usually at the festival stage. Which film won an award at what festival? What were the trade review, the early reviews, the early buzz on a certain film? The next step will be when the film is acquired. And a distributor is bringing the film to us, and it's, you know, that's a company that we have a relationship with. Have they handled, you know, in the case, have they handled an Israeli film before? What was their, you know, level of success? What theaters did we show the film at, and so on and so forth? What was the audience reaction? And yes, there are many cases where we are dealing directly with producers. Where a film was not acquired for distribution by a U.S. company, but there may be an opportunity to work directly with the producer on some kind of screening under some sort of arrangement, whether that's a rental arrangement or a split of box office. There's usually still some way to get your film screened in Los Angeles.
Thank you, Greg. Larry, there is a question here. I'm not going to, everyone can read it. It's about short films, and I do want to, I feel you know a lot about short films. What kind of tips can you tell? There are so many short films out there, let's be honest, like hundreds, hundreds of thousands a year. Many of them are trying to get into the festival circuit or want to be acquired. Your platform helps a lot. Do you have some tips like for those who really wants to get in, how to get visibility of their film? Of the short.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's absolutely to the question's point. It's very, very difficult to attract attention to short films, whether it's from audience or industry. I'd say even especially more difficult to attract industry and press. Virtually impossible to get your short written about in one of the major trades, unless it has, as Lucia said, a celebrity component. There's some well-known actor that's in the film, or, you know, perhaps it's a very timely topic that's explored, a relevant topic that's explored with the film. Sometimes that might make it relevant. We do an orientation sort of workshop with all the filmmakers that come through our festival, which again are primarily short filmmakers, and we kind of strategize with them as somebody, I think, like, you know, what MJ might do if she were taking a film out on an awards campaign. We strategize with them about, okay, what are ways that you can reach press? How can you find press that this might be relevant to? From our side, I think curation is really key with industry. We can't just expect that industry are going to come and show up. We as the festival need to enlist and ensure that those industry are going to show up. There are some festivals that play shorts that are really great at that. So I think we do a really great job. I think Palm Springs Shorts Fest does an amazing job of getting really enlisting industry to be there to see your short. I think Holly Shorts Film Festival in LA does a really great job. So there are festivals that are out there that do this kind of work of specifically focusing in on shorts. And you'll see, you know, if you go back and you look at previous years' programs, or in our case, previous months of our programming, most festivals will publish, you know, here are the industry that are coming in to meet with our filmmakers, or this is our industry delegation, or this is our industry component of the festival. I think that's what you want to look for when you have a short, and you're, you know, and to the point of the last question, right? Like, if a streamer acquires my film and says I can't play festivals, what do I do? Well, that's really up to you, right? Because if your objective, let's say you're a short and HBO Max acquires you as a short, and they say, we want to acquire this right now, but you can't play any festivals. Well, you have to decide, is it more worthwhile for me to get a bunch of eyeballs on my film and have the accolade of having my film acquired by HBO Max? Or did I really make this film because I wanted to travel the festival circuit and use it as a tool to develop my career? Did I make this so that I could meet with agents, managers? Did I make this as an idea that I have for television and I want to pitch it and use it as a pilot presentation for television as a short? Did I make it as a proof of concept for a feature that I want to make? And you kind of have to weigh your options and be really strategic about your festival strategy in why you made the film and what you want to accomplish with it. Look, there, as Layla knows and everybody else knows, there are thousands of festivals out there, and all of them have very different aspects that they may make them very valuable. But I think if you're looking to use that short specifically to build industry connections, you really have to do your research to find the festivals out there that have a major component of not only promoting the work that's being played to industry, but enlisting industry to come and meet with the filmmakers who are playing at the festival.
Thanks. And I will remember, yeah, please.
Oh, no, that was it.
I just remember 2 years ago, the film Wide Eye, a short film by Tomer Shushan, won here in Xifa Best Independent Short. It was the first festival it participated and won, and it continued and waited all over to be nominated for the Oscar for Best Short. I think it was also being shown in New Filmmakers LA. I'm not going to get stuck a lot about the award season, but Andrew, you are working on award season, and I know we have many filmmakers everywhere. Everyone wants to be a part. You know, everyone have big dreams to be a part of this celebration. So a very practical question, because someone texted me. We're now September 21. Is it too late? Is it okay? Now it's the time to get into the race, to start to find a publicist, a strategist?
MJ, before you answer that, I just wanted to say one more thing really quickly. I'm sorry. But it's a great story of Wide Eye, actually. I'm really glad you brought that up. So we played it in January of 2021. And Axel from Warner Media 150 was like, oh my God, he was part of our industry delegation. He's like, oh my God, I saw this short actually when I was on the jury at Urban World. Can you put me in touch with the filmmaker? I really want to talk to him. That was the conduit to that short getting acquired by HBO Max. So it's not necessarily just one festival either, right? Like Axel saw it first at Urban World, but then he was reminded at our festival, oh, you know what? I had meant to get in touch with this filmmaker. Can you put me in touch? So I think there's value in that too, in playing more than one festival. Industry keeps seeing your name over and over and over again, and it's like a reminder, you know? Sorry, MJ, go ahead.
No worries. I guess it really depends on what category that you're submitting to. So for instance, if you're going for general categories, which is director, writer, screenplay, actor, cinematographer, etc., you have until, I think it's November 15th to get all of your information to the Academy, and you have to pay $12,500, and they'll put your film up on the screening room, the Academy screening room. If it's a foreign language film and you're looking to go into that category, that is not a branch specific category, which a lot of people don't understand. So it's entirely up to the country of origin to select your film. And my advice would be to find out who that committee is, and to have, you know, somehow, I don't know if, I'm sure every country is different and how they put it together. Each of those committees, it has to be sanctioned first by the Academy before they can select a film. So any of the sort of newer countries or countries that have never submitted before sometimes miss that step and then realize that they can't submit their movie that year because they don't have a sanctioned committee in that country. That happened to someone I know a few years ago. But once once your film is selected, and I say the sooner the better, because they used to have a committee that would have to see the films in a movie theater, not stream, but that all changed last year. And so they actually put the foreign language films up on the Academy screening room. They do not charge the filmmaker. So that's the savings of $12,500. But what happened last year, and I no doubt it'll happen again, is that a lot of countries wait until the very end. This year, it's November 1st is your deadline to select the film. And then suddenly all these ProRes files start showing up. And in some cases, it took weeks and weeks for their films to get up on that screening room. which was in one case, one film I was working on was so desperate that they actually submitted it to the general